Hello students. Today's lecture is in continuation to yesterday's lecture of grammatology. So in a previous lecture we had seen that according to logocentrist theory, the speech may be a kind of presence because the speaker is simultaneously present for the listener, but writing may be a kind of absence because the writer is not simultaneously present for the reader. Writing may be regarded by logocentrist theory as a substitute for simultaneous presence of writer and reader. If the reader and the writer were simultaneously present, then the writer could communicate with the reader by speaking instead of writing. So that means writing is working in the absence of communication or in the absence of speech, right? So logocentrism thus asserts that writing is a substitute for speech and or an attempt to restore the presence of speech. So moving further, we say that Derrida describes logocentrism as metaphysics of presence, that is motivated by a desire for a transcendental signified. A transcendental signified is a signified that transcends all signifiers, and it is a meaning that transcends all signs. A transcendental signified is also a signified concept or thought that transcends any single signifier, but that is implied by all determination of meaning. Now we see that the transcendental signified may be deconstructed by an examination of the assumption that underlie the metaphysics of presence. For example, if presence is assumed to be the essence of the signified, then the proximity of a signifier to the signified may imply that the signifier is able to reflect the presence of signified. Here we are talking about the object and the word which is working as signifier, fine. So how close they are to each other, how closely we are, or relatively we can see signifier and the signified. That means the proximity between the signifier and the signified. So if the presence is assumed to the essence of the signified, then the remoteness of a signifier from the signified may imply that the signifier is unable or may only be barely able to reflect the presence of the signified. Now this interplay between proximity and remoteness is also an interplay between presence and absence, and between interiority and exteriority. So here what they say that if it is writing, then speech is absent, and if speech is present, then writing is absent. So here he talks about the difference. So difference is a term that Derrida uses to describe the origin of presence and absence, right? The difference between the presence and the absence. So difference is indefinable and it cannot be explained by the metaphysics of presence. Like he says that in French the verb differer means both to differ and to differ. Thus difference may refer not only to the state or quality of being differed, but to the state of quality of being different as well. So difference may be the condition for that which is differed, and it may be the condition for that which is different. Difference may be the condition for difference. Now Derrida explains that difference is the condition for the opposition of presence and absence. That means if one is present, the other is absent. Difference is also the hinge between speech and writing, a sort of connection which is hanging between speech and writing, and between inner meaning and outer representation. So there is a connection, there is a link to which the speech and writing are connected. So it is a representation of the inner and the outer. Now, according to Derrida, arch writing is a form of language that cannot be conceptualized within the metaphysics of presence. It is an original form of language that is not derived from speech, and it is unhindered by the difference between speech and writing. So he says that it is also a condition for the play of difference between written and non-written form of language. The concept of arch writing is different from the vulgar concept of writing. So the vulgar concept of writing, which is proposed by the metaphysics of presence, is deconstructed by the concept of arch writing. Now, here Derrida criticizes the linguistic theory of Ferdinand de Saussure and the structuralist theory of Claude Lévi-Strauss for promoting logocentrism. What he says, Derrida criticizes Saussure for saying that the purpose for which writing exists is to present or represent speech. That means the purpose of writing is to represent speech only, otherwise there is no purpose for the writing or of the writing. And according to Saussurean linguistics, the articulation of spoken language depends on a mechanism which Derrida calls a hinge, by which ideas are connected to sound, images, and the articulation of written language depends on a mechanism by which written words are connected to a spoken words. Here we see that Derrida criticizes Saussure's theory of language for promoting both logocentrism and phonocentrism. Derrida argues that writing may be either phonetic or non-phonetic. Non-phonetic writing may be pictorial, ideographic, or symbolic. Now, writing may also have a multi-dimensional structure that may not be subordinated to the temporality of sounds. Here he says that writing as a linear realization of vocalization may be conceptualized as unfolding of a kind of presence, and Saussure's theory of language may therefore be described as metaphysics of presence. Saussure teaches that spoken language is a process by which ideas are connected to sound images, right? So, but Derrida explains that a single phonetic signifier may have multiple phonetic values, and that these phonetic values may have a range of variation. Like we talk of the kernels, yes, we open one kernel and there is we open one layer and there is another layer like inside it. So it is difficult to reach the kernel, fine. So Derrida argues that Saussure does not consider the range of differences that may occur between phonetic signifiers, and that Saussure's theory of language is inadequate to describe the play of difference between speech and writing. Thus, grammatology deconstructs the theory of the relation between spoken and written language that is promoted by Saussure, and it instead explores the true symbolic power of writing. Now, moving further, we see that Derrida criticizes Lévi-Strauss for not adequately recognizing that logocentrism may promote ethnocentrism. So, Derrida argues that logocentrism may promote ethnocentrism if it encourages the retelling of myth about the origin of language and promotes misunderstanding of the relation between speech and writing. Here, Derrida also argues that the structuralist approach to anthropology may encourage ethnocentrism if it is mainly concerned with comparing different cultures according to the use of writing. An unbiased approach to cultural anthropology must recognize that the use of writing may in some cases become a form of cultural or social domination, by which those who use writing may attempt to subjugate those who do not use writing. That means creating dominance through writing. Now, Derrida argues that Derrida provides an extended commentary on Rousseau's essay on the origin of language. Now, here he says that in order to investigate Rousseau's theory that writing is a supplement to speech, he criticizes Rousseau's statement that writing is nothing but a representation of speech. He also explains that the function of writing is not merely to substitute for the presence of speech, and that writing is not merely an effort to recover a missing or lost presence. That means something which is written is only trying to investigate or recover or reappropriate what is missing or what is lost. That means it is trying to create, writing is trying to create the lost presence, recreate what was present. Right? So, writing is not merely a kind of absence that must reappropriate a kind of presence from other form of language in order to restore presence to itself. According to Rousseau, writing may become a dangerous supplement. It is if it is used as a substitute for speech. Writing may subvert any meaning that may be intended by the speech. So, this is what is prescribed in your syllabus, that is the dangerous supplement, and we are going to read it in detail in our next class. So, here he says that the substitution of writing for speech also implies that speech is closer than writing to the original nature of language. Thus, Rousseau argues that writing may corrupt the original nature of language. It is like manipulating the nature. So, here he says that writing is a nature, speech is a nature and writing is manipulated form of writing, speech. So, however, Derrida explains that even if writing is viewed as a supplement to speech, it still adds meaning to speech and may provide a kind of presence. If writing is narrowly regarded as merely a supplement to speech, however, it may be viewed as a merely an external addition to speech. Now, the argument that writing is a supplement to speech may also suggest that there is a loss of presence in speech that must be supplemented by writing. If an absence expands within the presence of speech, then writing may become a means of recovering whatever presence is lacking. Thus, writing cannot properly be viewed merely as absence, just as speech cannot properly be viewed merely as presence. Speech may occur within writing and writing may occur within a speech. So, Derrida also explains that writing may occur before or after speech. Writing may in some cases express a passion or need that exists prior to speech. The cry of passion or need may be articulated by singing, shouting, gesturing, speaking and writing. So, this is the argument which is given by Derrida for the importance of writing. This is all for today. Thank you all.